All right, guys. So awesome weekend. We had the Arnolds. I'm going to be talking about the Bikini International. Obviously, we had Vania taking out the win. A bit of an upset, I guess. She's still a top athlete. She's still an Olympian, but definitely probably the general conversation wasn't having her as a favorite. It was more focused on Jazzy. She was the favorite on paper. She was third at the Olympia. So all eyes were to her to see what kind of package she brought. I thought they all nailed it. You know, anything that sort of, any feedback that is given generally at this level is never a matter of like, you aren't Bikini. Like every single person on stage, every single athlete was Bikini. No doubt about that. Everyone was amazing. But there's just little tiny subtle changes at this level that makes a big difference. You know, the judges have to decide this in minutes. You know, they don't have hours to sit and stare at the photos. Like I've put this collage together and I've been looking at it since the show. And the things that I see are basically the things that the judges pick up within minutes while the girls are on stage. And this stuff shifts between prejudging and finals, you know. So they got a massive job. Bikini is a really tough class to judge. You got to know what you're looking at. You got to have the eye for it. And so I kind of want to touch on what I'm seeing. When I was watching the live stream, I saw Jazzy winning. She had some, crazy fullness on the stream. You couldn't really see how hard she was. But then in the photos, you can see, just the level of conditioning, sort of the structure. Slightly could be adjusted with posing. I'll go through a little bit more in detail, but to me, it looks like she was marked down because of how X-frame she is. She's really sending that glute out. There's quite hard detail through the quad there. Even when she was walking to the front of the stage, you could see, a lot of separation in the quads. Really, really large projection there on the glute, and then crazy super wide shoulders. I don't know if I don't know what they do, whether they pump up or not backstage, but it's almost like she just needs to adjust her posing to increase the hourglass and reduce the way that it's just so X-framey. It's so wide through there, and it just ties in really, really tight in a waist. It's not like you look at Vania here, sorry. It's more hourglass. She's not overly wide through the shoulders, and it allows her to get away with having less lower body size. She's probably one of the smaller girls on stage. Her and Mariah not as developed. Like, look at her development compared to Amy. Like, Amy's just like almost twice the amount of leg. And so to match this amount of muscle, she has to have width through the top. Vania's not as wide, so it works for her to not be as big in the lower body. The thing that I didn't like in the stream, and this is something I was mentioning to a few people, is this detail in her quad. It wasn't there all the time. It was only there for a couple of seconds while she was posing, but it was still there and it was taking my eye. But whether the judges just overlooked that completely or didn't see it or whatever, I doubt they didn't see it. But it's anyone's guess. But that's something that I would be very careful of with her. But obviously it was enough, the balance. And in Bikini, at this level, we're not talking about crazy things that need to change. This is just such a perfect balance of everything that it was just so overwhelming. Amy came away with second again, and I believe, like, in comparison to Vania here, she's just a little bit too thick. She's sending her in this pose, she's sending her glute out to the side a lot. It's creating that X frame, similar to Jazzy here. And then, obviously the width through the top there is not as X-framey. Like, you can see the taper on the lat, it's not as big as Jazzy, but it's still a lot. She's a lot wider than Vania is. And it just gives it that, it doesn't look as feminine, So that's how I see that. That's why I believe that Vania won in the front pose. It was a lot closer at prejudging, in my opinion. But in the finals, she was just a lot more polished, I suppose, with her posing. And you can even see it in the pose. Like, obviously this photo isn't a very great angle of all the girls, but just in this particular comparison, it's just so much more balanced. When you look at it, it's more pleasing to look at. She looks more sort of in control of her pose. I don't know whether it's something to do with Amy's carb up, or whether she was tired or fatigued or something like that. It just looked a little bit harder for her to nail the pose. And there's more to that in the rear pose, and I'll go through that in a second. That being said, though, like second is nothing to turn your nose up to. You know, second at the Arnold's is absolutely insane, and she deserves it. You know, she's an incredible bikini athlete, absolutely insane structure, crazy full. This was such an awesome package. Like, there's such a massive improvement on the Olympia package. So really happy to see her bringing that in. But I can definitely see why Vania took the win there. Moving along to Ashlyn here. For me, it's the arms. It's also the X frame. It's just a little bit less feminine. You know, it tends to be an issue when you have so much sort of density and shape in your delts, or whether you pose this way. You know, I would like to see her twist her arm a little bit more, because there's a little bit of tricep there visible. It just makes it appear more masculine. Whether that's just this particular photo, or whether it's just the way that she's posing in this particular photo, it's hard to say. You know, like, obviously you can go watch the footage and analyze it that way. But when you're comparing the girls like this, that's what stands out to me, is just the femininity and the balance of Vania here. When you compare to any of these girls, it just exposes their weaknesses. It's just that pose is so perfect for her. So I would say a bit of a posing adjustment, looking into, you know, how much she's training her arms potentially, and just being careful of the masculinity that comes through with those little details. Otherwise, you know, absolutely insane. Like, let's be honest, like, third at the Arnold's, absolutely insane. She's at some points there in prejudging too, they had her in the middle, and she was holding her own. Like, she was really dominant in the front. But we'll go to the back in a second. So yeah, Ashlyn absolutely killed it. Mariah, my issue with Mariah is just she seems a little bit top heavy. You know, she's absolutely, like, you know, she's similar to Vania in the fact that she's not as big in the lower body, but she is wider than Vania. She is more sort of, I wouldn't say developed, but she's just got that width across the top there, tiny waist. So it gives her that appearance of a little bit being a little bit top heavy. So I wouldn't probably do much with the upper body. I would just build the lower body density and size a little tiny bit, maybe just a little bit more glutes. Her quads and hamstrings are pretty good. Maybe, to be honest, probably a little bit more hamstring there just to balance that out. But it could also be a posing thing that needs to be adjusted, where it makes the legs look more in balance with the upper body. But I reckon her condition was on point. She nailed that. Her posing was great. Her presentation was great. So yeah, I would say just go back and look at what's going on with the training and make sure that, you know, everything's in balance, and the way that you're peaking and everything like that is, you know, where you want it to be, so that you can be more balanced visually. Yeah, I would just say that she's a little bit top heavy. It could just be the pose. It could be the way that she's, so yeah, with Mariah here, same sort of situation as Vania. She's not as big in the lower body, and so for her, she's a little bit wider through the shoulders than Vania. So it does highlight the lower body lack of size or density. Like, you can see Vania is more developed than Mariah is. They're both less developed than the rest of the girls, but she's more developed than Mariah is, and that's sort of highlighted here. She does look a little bit top heavy in this pose. Just through this leg over here, a little bit more glute fullness, possibly a little bit of hamstrings, just to balance out that. Or it could be a matter of, I feel like if she was to pose her shoulders different and not be so wide, she probably wouldn't match the other girls in size. So it's like she's opening up her upper body to be as wide as these girls, which she is, but then she's lacking size in this front pose, lacking density, lacking fullness in this front pose in the lower body. So that's something that's showing up to me. I don't know whether it's something that can be fixed with posing, whether it needs to be fixed with training. You know, you'd have to have a look at what she's doing, but that's what I'm seeing in this photo. So obviously, you know, crazy fourth place in the Arnold's. You know, again, I feel like I have to say this, because when I say what I'm seeing, it's not out of like hate or like anything like that. It's just honestly just being analytical, and it's for fun, right? Like, I enjoy breaking this down and analyzing why the judges do something. Moving on to Ariana, it's the same sort of situation for me. She has, as Mariah, but it's more exacerbated here. She's got good fullness, you know, but it's like one shoulder's really round, this one's like kind of hidden. So it kind of looks a little bit like lopsided. And then her lower body and glute, mainly glute in this pose isn't as full. And so it gives her that, like my eyes go straight to this delt. I don't really look at the rest of her body. It doesn't flow. Whereas if you compare it to Vania, it's just this crazy amount of flow, balance. Your eyes don't rest anywhere. And you're just kind of darting around her physique, trying to figure out what's going on. And it's just awesome. Whereas with Ariana, it's like, I look at this delt, I kind of look at this quad, I don't really see balance. It doesn't flow as well as these other girls, So that's something that I would maybe it's a posing adjustment, but definitely need more fullness and size in the lower body, especially the glute. And I think she had time off last year. I think she's still kind of coming back, and that's obviously the first thing that you lose, I suppose. If you haven't trained for a while, you kind of lose that size and fullness and shape. So I'm sure she'll get it back very soon. And she's definitely showing fullness and more improvements in the shape since the Olympia anyway. So she's on the right track, I'd say. But that's what I'm seeing there. It's just not as balanced. Then moving back to Jazzy, I gave my thoughts before. I feel like her struggle, like if I was to look like a girl, if I was to choose who I want to look like, if I was a girl and I was like, who do I want to look like? I'd want to look like her. It's insane, like absolutely crazy physique. It's so impressive, the structure, everything. But again, it's 2X frame. It's 2X frame for bikini. There's too much taper. Like her lats so like it's just the way, it could be just the way she's posing. She could under pose or down pose a little bit and not send the glute out so far. But in just the way she's standing here, it's just so X-framey. She is fuller, she is bigger from the Olympia. I'm fairly sure they told her to get fuller, so she's done that. But as a result of that, she's just so wide, so X, right? You see, when you look at the silhouette, it is a really obvious X-frame, and that's kind of what Ariana's got going on here, similar to Ashlyn. X-frame seems to be the problem for this bottom four here. Then Amy's a little bit more hourglass, and then Vania's just nailed the hourglass. So that's what I see in the front pose. I did mention the quads as well, but the way that it takes, like, if I sit down and look at it, takes me minutes or a long time to get to this sort of conclusion. The judges are doing it instantly. Like, they're moving them around, they're making these calls, and they're giving them points. So quick, it's so impressive. I'm in awe, honestly, watching that live stream, the way that they judge that. Let's move to the back pose. I'll start obviously with Vania. Just crazy fullness. Like, the glutes look like they're not real. It's so full. They're just popping out. They're 3D. It's so impressive, so balanced. Like, there's nothing that is standing out here that's missing in the lower body. She's not too lean. There is quite a defined tie in there, but it's not overly etched or anything like that. It's just nice and lean and full, but it's not overly detailed. Crazy, yeah, and no lines in the hamstrings. Yeah, really awesome lower body in the rear pose. Tiny waist, shoulders are full. They're in proportion with the lower body. Her hair's long enough. Like, it's just such a perfect package, man. Like, unbelievable. Really awesome. Moving along to Amy here. Something that I posted on my story, I feel like she had some issues with her midsection, and then I actually saw on her story that she was talking about how she couldn't control her breathing, she couldn't control her core or something like that. And this photo on NPC News was actually one of the ones that was making her waist look as smaller. So there were actually photos that were making it way wider than this. This was one of the smaller ones. I tried to keep it fair, but her waist at some stages was looking way thick, like actually a little more thicker than this. So I don't know what they've been doing, but it's something that was very noticeable, and that's what, despite the insane fullness, the great balance in the shoulders, like, she's similar development in the rear pose to Vania, and almost as full, but it is the waist. It's honestly just the waist for me that let her down here. Like, she's much fuller, in a better position for bikini than Ashlyn. Ashlyn's a little bit flat here, but the waist is letting her down. So, if she had her regular tiny waist, I feel like she's going to really push Vania in this stage. Could she have won? It's hard to say, but it's just such a detriment when the waist is like this in bikini, you never see girls with a thicker waist in the rear pose doing very well. It doesn't matter how developed they are. It needs to be tight. It needs to be hourglass. It can't be straight up and down. And that's what we're seeing here. So I don't know what they're doing, but they need to figure that out, because that's what's letting her down, in my opinion. She could be, top 3 Olympian, like winning Arnold's. Like, she's so consistent. She's got everything that you need. It's just something going on with the posing or something. I have to look into that. So yeah. Moving along to Ashlyn, balanced, really, really good, small waist, not overly like developed anywhere, like nice proportion, balance, structure's good. Just looks a little flat. When you when you compare her to Vania, look at the crazy fullness, man. Like they're so 3D, round, bubbly, and then this is obviously by all standards absolutely insane physique, but just lost a little bit of fullness. I don't know whether it's something they did in peak week, or whether it's just needs more development, needs more time. But she's another one. She seems to be on like a trajectory, so we'll see what she does as a result of the feedback. But that would be what I'd say there. In terms of overall, structure, balance, everything else, she's fantastic, but just doesn't have the fullness and density to match it. The top two. Down to Mariah. I always say this. I hate it when the hair doesn't cover the lower back. It is just so distracting to me. But again, same in the front pose. She's top heavy. She's got really wide shoulders. It's distracting. It actually makes her glutes look small. They don't pop as much as, like, look at Vania's glutes here, right? It's not a glute show, but they're in balance with upper body. Whereas here, she's not as full, but that could be the illusion that her shoulders are giving. Like, her shoulders are overshadowing her glutes. And so, like, condition's good. She just needs to be fuller, cover the hair, cover the lower back with hair, and maybe just tuck the shoulders in, change the posing. I don't know, something where it's just reducing the overpowering look that the upper body has. That's the same in the front pose. So I would say adjust the posing, and then she's going to be pushing for third. Like, she's going to be really pushing Ashlyn here because she is fuller, but it's just not as balanced. And that's the crazy thing. Like, in bikini, like, it's honestly like your shoulders could be here in the back pose, and then all you have to do is do this, and like you're now upper place. Like, that's how detailed and important it is. So yeah. Anyway, moving along to Ariana here. For me, her fullness is awesome. She's just a little soft. Like, if you compare her to Vania, a little bit soft, right? Obviously, if she came in a little bit harder, a little bit more conditioned, she probably wouldn't have the same fullness, because she's still trying to build her way back from having time off. So I would assume that was the target here, is just to bring it in as full as possible, not give up any fullness in chasing better condition. And as a result of that, it's hurt her, because she's gotten beaten here by someone who's probably not as balanced, but has better condition. So that's why I believe here. And then with Ariana too, she is so big in the delts. Like, look at this roundness and fullness. And it does make the lower body, again, same sort of thing as Mariah here, makes the lower body look a little bit thin, not as round and full and dense as Vania. So yeah, maybe a posing adjustment, maybe just lay off the shoulders. Like, that was the same sort of thing that I was saying in the front pose. Shoulders are really round and full and big. I would be reducing that, and then making sure, like, getting wider through the glutes, fuller, and a little bit harder, right? And then moving back to everyone was talking about this, to Jazzy here. Everyone was talking about this, going, how the heck did she not place top 3 or even win? And this photo proves that, had to look at this on the live stream. It was like, what? How the heck? Like, you could. I was agreeing with everyone. I was like, that's weird. She should be placing higher. But when I see this photo, it's obvious. She's narrow through the lower body. She's got the same problem these two girls here. She's top heavy. It's tapered in. Okay, it's not balanced with the lower body, and so it gives it like a triangle. Like, it's more like this. It's not straight up and down like an hourglass like Vania here. So when you've got this width out here and then it comes into the glutes, that's not bikini. That's like, bikini is not top heavy like that. So straight away when she turned to the back, the judges would have just said, nah, that's not bikini, sorry. She's obviously super gifted, amazing structure, everything, but it's just the way she was posing. So she still needs to get wider through the glutes, or she needs to reduce change the way she's posing. It's like the upper glute, she doesn't need to get any like rounder in the bottom down in the tie end here, maybe a little bit fuller, but she doesn't need that. She needs more upper glute width to make her waist look a little smaller potentially, and then just change the way she's posing the upper body so that it is more hourglass, because at the moment it's just tapered down. Same as Ariana, same as Mariah. It's just a posing thing. So a little bit more in the glutes, and then from there, be in a really good spot. I would say that the next time she does a big show, if they can fix all that, she's going to be so hard to beat, because that fullness is insane. Like the way that she improved from the Olympia, absolutely killer. I was really excited, but you can see here with these photos why the placings were the way they were. So yeah, that pretty much concludes it. That's how I see things. Hopefully that's helpful or interesting. I enjoy doing this sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next pro show, and I'm going to keep doing this. If you'd like me to break down anything in particular, you'd like me to go through any other athletes, let me know. Comment in, put names in the comments or shows in the comments that you want me to focus on. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon.